1 year ago, I graduated college. And for the first time in my life, no one was telling me what to do next. There were an infinite number of paths in front of me, and the perfectionist in me wanted to pick the best possible path. But how was I supposed to know which path was the best path for me? Well, I decided to learn from the experience of those who came before me. And this is how I got into the world of personal development. I started reading books, watching videos, listening to podcasts, everything that I could do to learn how to be an adult. I was trying to figure out the best practices for finances, relationships, careers, and everything else that an adult would be doing. 4 months in and 30 or so books later, I realized that consuming content was just not helping me. I had knowledge, yes, but it was scattered and unorganized. It was not useful. It was not actionable. Most people spend their entire lives as consumers. They keep taking in information, pumping their brains full of data that has nowhere else to go. Data that just gets scattered. And this is what happened to me. I consumed valuable information, yes, but I wasn't learning anything. My brain was filled with disconnected facts and motivational quotes, but I made no changes. I made no progress. And I realized that this had to change. This is when I discovered frameworks thinking. So this is when I realized that the main cause of brain fog and lack of mental clarity was that my thoughts were not clearly organized. That's why in this video, we're going to talk about frameworks thinking and how to use it to distill, organize, and utilize all the information and the content that we consume on a daily basis. Hello everyone, my name is Surya, and on this channel we talk about frameworks thinking, which is the art of optimizing your mind by collecting, connecting, and conveying information. If you're excited to organize your thoughts and achieve mental clarity, then hit the subscribe button and let's jump right in. So what is frameworks thinking? Well, a framework is a simplified representation of reality. This just means that it's a concise and clear way of representing some sort of fact. You can think of frameworks thinking like using heuristics. Heuristics are just mental shortcuts that can facilitate problem solving and probability judgments. They are basically generalizations, which means they reduce cognitive load and can be used to make immediate judgments. Of course, sometimes these heuristics are irrational or lead to inaccurate conclusions. So just like heuristics, frameworks are also some kind of mental shortcut. They organize information in our head, so it's very easy to deploy it when we need it for problem-solving purposes. So how did frameworks thinking come about? Well, here's an interesting fact for you. The concept of frameworks thinking was actually mentioned in a book that's almost 3,500 years old. This book is a Hindu philosophical text called the Vedas, and here's what it says about frameworks thinking. If a man wants to truly understand this universe bit by bit, he must know every individual grain of sand, which would take an infinite amount of time. Of course, he cannot know all of them. Then how can knowledge be? How is it possible for man to be all-knowing? Well, the Vedas states that behind every particular fact or piece of knowledge, there is a more generalized concept, a fundamental understanding. Once you understand this general concept, you'll be able to grasp all the finer details without studying them specifically. So what this means in terms of frameworks is that if you take a bunch of specific details and organize it into a simple generalized concept, it'll be not just easy to teach, but easy to implement into our day-to-day lives. This is by far the biggest benefit of frameworks thinking. Now, whenever we want to act on something or make a decision, we don't need to go over all the little individual facts that we've learned across various different knowledge sources. We can just think of one general framework that summarizes all this information and use it to make our decision. Now we're going to talk about how to cultivate framework thinking, but before that, we need to understand how knowledge is organized in our head. And this means understanding the 3 different types of frameworks. Now there are many different ways to classify knowledge, ranging from super simple to super complex. We're going to take a look at 3 broad categories of knowledge. All 3 of these have been referred to as frameworks, but the 3 of them combined is what makes frameworks thinking as powerful as it is. The first category of knowledge is called concepts. These are basically single chunks of information. Things like a law in physics or a bias in psychology. This comes in many forms like facts, theories, laws, biases, but it all comes down to being one single chunk of information. The next category is called a model. Now a model takes all these individual concepts and links them together to form a cohesive information image. What this means is that models outline the structure or the connections between different pieces of information or concepts. An example of a model is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This model is based on a lot of past facts and concepts. One of these being humans need social connection as a part of their day-to-day life. Now, the third final category of knowledge is called a system. What systems do is they use all these models to create an actionable plan. Systems are always outcome-based. They either help you make decisions, or they help you form habits, or they help you learn something new. An example is the time boxing system that Cal Newport and Elon Musk talk about. This is a productivity tool, and its outcome is saving you time. Of course, these definitions and categories are a little bit flexible. Now, some concepts might be modeled after various different facts, or some models might have some actionable tips like a system. These terms are just how I organize information in my head to help me better understand and utilize frameworks. Now, this is actually the secret behind a lot of people in the personal development space. What they do is they understand the fundamental concepts. Now, they use these concepts to build models and systems. They give them catchy names to make it easier to understand them and implement them, and they build their audience based on these models and systems that they've designed. The problem is that these models and systems were built by someone else. They're tuned to someone else's life. They might be general enough to help a lot of people, but they're not specific enough to apply to your life directly. Now, of course, on my channel, I do want to share some of the frameworks that I build based on my own knowledge and understanding. But I also want to teach you how to build your own frameworks. If you understand framework thinking, you can create models and systems that are tuned to your specific goals and will help you move forward in your life. Now, before we move forward to understanding how to actually use these three categories of knowledge to develop our frameworks thinking, let me talk to you real quick. On my last video, I talked about doing free 15-minute calls with you guys. This is because I just wanted to talk to my audience and connect with them. Now, here's a comment from someone I talked to last week. I really hope people book this session because it helped me a lot. It was really fun talking to you, and like you said, I wasn't letting myself feel what I was supposed to feel. Sometimes we need a different perspective on our situation to see what we aren't seeing, and that is completely okay. Thank you for hearing me out and talking to me, and now I can see that I really needed that. I really had a great time talking to everyone about a lot of different topics, from relationships to finances to just general personal development. If you're looking for someone to talk to just about these general topics, or a friend, or a shoulder to cry on, then I'd love to be that person for you. You can still book free 15-minute calls with me using the link in the description below. Thank you for being a friend, and I hope to see you there. Let's continue with the video. Now that we know about concepts, models, and systems, here are the 3 broad steps that you need to follow to start developing your frameworks thinking. Step 1 is to collect and consume information. You're probably already doing this through the podcasts you listen to, the books that you read, and the videos you watch, like this one. What you should also be doing is that every time you come across a piece of information that seems surprising to you, that seems new to you, take note of it somewhere. Open up something like Apple Notes or Google Notes and just write down your thoughts. That way, you're not relying on your brain to remember and store a bunch of information. You have all of it written down somewhere. All of these little chunks of information are basically concepts. Now, don't worry about organizing them just yet, because we'll be doing that in the next step. For now, focus on collecting all these different thoughts and pieces of information that you find interesting. Now, let me give you a quick example. Let's say you're trying to learn how to eat healthier, and you're consuming a lot of media on this subject. From one piece of media, you learned that you need about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. From another piece of media, you learned about the 5 different types of plants that we need, which are fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, and grains. One other piece of media talks about our gut health and how we need to consume pre- and probiotics, and how this directly affects our brain. All of these one-sentence facts are concepts. These are things you should be jotting down in your notes. Now, once you have a bunch of concepts on this topic, we can move on to step 2, which is curate. Now, this is the step where you start categorizing and connecting all these concepts and start building your models. Within your basic notes, you can start making folders and putting related notes into these folders. You can also start noting down the different connections that you see and start building a cohesive model. This process of linking information is the core of frameworks thinking, and I will talk about this a lot more in future videos. For now, let's go back to our example. Let's say we made a couple of folders to organize all the different information about our diet, and we found that the diet can be split into three main parts: macronutrients, micronutrients, and biotics. Under macronutrients, we learned about proteins, fats, and carbs. Under micronutrients, we talked about vitamins and minerals and how these can be achieved from the 5 different types of plants. Under biotics, we talked about pre and probiotics and how these help with our gut health. Now, all these different concepts have come together and built a model for diet. This model doesn't exist anywhere. It was built by us based on all the little concepts that we learned. This is what we do in step 2. This is how we curate information. Of course, there are many different tools on the market to better understand this information curation. In fact, there's a whole community built by Tiago Forte called the Second Brain Community. I'll be making videos about this in the future, so if you want to learn how to build your own second brain, then subscribe so that you'll be notified when the next video comes out. Okay, so now we built a model based on all the little concepts we know about diet. So when someone asks us a question or has a problem with their diet, we can clearly and concisely convey this information because we have a much deeper understanding than the average person that has just listened to a bunch of podcasts and read a bunch of books. But how do we actually make use of this information? Well, that's where step 3 comes in. Step 3 is to create. Now, creation just comes down to building and deploying a system. This means that we take all the models that we've built and apply it to our day-to-day life in some organized manner. The beauty of this process is we actually get to learn from our own experiences rather than just relying on someone else's concepts. So let's say based on our model for diet that we built in the previous step, we can start making changes to our day-to-day life. We know that we need to eat 30 different plants every single week. We know how much protein we need daily, and we know the specifics of the pre and probiotics that we need to intake. Based on this, we can build a weekly or monthly system for nutrition that we can incorporate and then change as we evolve day to day. Now, this is the beauty of frameworks thinking. Remember that learning is non-linear. You pick up a few things here, and then a few months later, you pick up a few things there. You're collecting these knowledge fragments in your mind as you come across them. Frameworks thinking is assembling all these fragments into a cohesive picture and then using this picture to make changes in your life. Now let me leave you with a quick story that'll help you better understand frameworks thinking and understand the future direction of this channel. Imagine you are walking down a path. Every now and then you find a little puzzle piece. You pick it up, put it in your pocket, and keep continuing forward. Now this is the path of content consumption. Every little puzzle piece you find is a piece of information. Now all these puzzle pieces may be parts of different puzzles. Better yet, some pieces fit into a lot of different puzzles. Now just collecting a lot of these pieces isn't really learning. It's not the point of the puzzle. We can't see a clear picture. Now let's say you have a bunch of pieces that depict the picture of a boat. We can't see the clear picture until we start actually assembling the puzzle. If someone asks us what does a boat look like, we wouldn't know this until we've started assembling our puzzle. This is what frameworks thinking is. It's assembling all the fragments of knowledge that you've collected over your content consumption journey so you can better visualize the entire picture. The more puzzles that you can finish, the clearer your thinking will be. Now, when you need to explain a concept or solve a problem, you can look at all your finished puzzles rather than shuffling through a bunch of little fragments of knowledge, a bunch of little pieces, to try to see which ones fit together. This is why people who think in frameworks actually think more clearly. Just like we talked about in this video, the first step is to collect a bunch of these puzzle pieces. The second step is try to fit them together to see which pieces make a completed image. And the third step is to utilize what we learn from the image and start building it into our experiences. Now I hope this video and all future videos will help you see that clearer image. Until then, thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.